Are you a burnt out overachiever buried in responsibilities? Do you miss laughing with your friends, just laughing from the gut? Remember that? Do you feel like life's passing you by? If you've been wishing for some kind of shift, you're in the right place. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, the show where we take you off the hamster wheel by ditching the to-do list for the to-don't list. This is where you get to learn how to make that lonely ache vanish, learn self-compassion techniques, and to give yourself grace. I'm Lauren Abrams, and I get to help you feel that magic again since going through my own dark night of the soul, so you can learn from my experience and the mentors and experts I meet along the way. And today we're talking to one of those mentors, entrepreneur, marketer, and brand amplifier, Joe Fier. Are you ready to create your life that's more joy and less burnout? You're in for a treat hearing from Joe, who hit that overwhelm and now has tips and tools for you so you can learn how to take back your time, your vitality, and your health. You get to stop wearing that mask like everything's okay right now. Welcome to 52 Weeks of Hope, Joe.
Thank you, Lauren. That was awesome. Thank you for the intro, and it was so sweet. And it's been, it's great to be here. I know we've been talking
I'm very
about it for a while.
excited to do this. Okay, so I just listened to your episode for Hustle and Flowchart, your podcast. You've been in the podcasting world forever, but it was the one on happiness, and there was so much just in that one solo episode that there's just a lot. And you talked about, wait a minute, it was the factors that determine happiness.
Remind me a couple of things.
There was so much in it, and it was so surprising because you talked about some of it is inherited, but it was like 51% we create, and it was getting enough sleep, which we hear about a lot the last few years. But we get to create our own happiness, and I know you have this guys group and your own type of scorecard that you keep, and it's because of Joe, by the way, that my scorecard that's on the website is now color coded and so much prettier and everything else. He had me tweak it so it's so much better and easier to read and everything. So you want to talk about the factors that create that happiness, and because you hit your overwhelm and had to slow down. So there's a lot built into that.
There is. Yeah. And I'll kick it off with that for sure. And I forget the exact factors I said in that podcast. A lot of this stuff, sometimes it's all rooted in pillars or whatever how I navigate my own life, happiness. Sometimes, the specifics come out in different ways. But I'll just say that this year has been totally different than most, actually all of them, because of that scorecard. So to highlight what you're doing here with your own scorecard and, putting the pause into things and being more mindful overall with what we're doing with our action and our inaction. Those are an action or a choice anyway. Happiness is a choice, and it doesn't start with that. I think this might have been in the episode. I felt like I always had to be happy, or at least have I think happy actually. And I was like, you don't really have to be happy all the time. It's more like realize now it's almost like neutral / like a contentness in
a balance.
Things. Yeah. And more like a harmony is what I always like to say over even balance. Because I used to think balance. I'm like, it's kind of BS with balance, because let's be honest, life can be chaos. But at the same time, you can feel good through it, or at least feel neutral about it enough to keep your head straight and level minded. So I feel like now I would almost define happiness as that, like knowing that I'm putting my best expression and effort out there. And at the same time, I'm taking time for myself to be grounded enough, and I can chill the F out a little bit, because I think if I didn't, and a lot of us type A folks, we can just go. And I found myself in burnout many times, or in a very kind of negative mindset that would then patterns I probably developed from my father, I would imagine. It can turn into even little anger, and just like when it's like that pent upness. And that's because that's on me though, so these habits and like a checklist when I'm nailing the sleep, getting at least 7 hours, ideally more, when I'm doing breath work in the morning, when I'm able to move my body in multiple ways. Like I always crank out 100 push-ups a day throughout the day. And that's like almost easy now. So I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Because back in the day, it used to be very difficult. But it's just that consistently, moving my body. I moved my office right next to the home gym. So it's like, I got to walk past all the kettlebells and all these rings. And I'm like, apparently I'm moving my body all day long. But that's like a mental, it's got to ground me. And if I'm not doing that, I get a little squirrely. Yeah, just all over the place. So it keeps me focused and happy.
Yeah. And when I interviewed your wife, Heather, she was talking about how good you are, and you're very regimented with as far as meditation and moving your body and all of that. And she could feel it when she hasn't, but that you're really good at making sure you do that daily.
Yeah, I'm happy she
So
says that.
she spoke very highly of you in that regard. So how did you get into meditation? Why did you start? How long have you been doing that?
Good call. It's been a long time. Personal development. So I'll say, I think a lot of this came out through work and the people I was working with. Back probably starting to almost 12 years ago ish, maybe 11. And some of my first clients, so when I broke into this marketing space, started doing blogging and some content stuff with a good friend of mine, old business partner named Matt Wolf, who is now gone off into the AI world and has blown it up there on YouTube. You can find him. And great guy. I'll be seeing him next week. We still stay in touch. But the point is, like, we started in this content phase, but then I always had a knack for visuals, putting like giving feedback to you, like some color in there, Lauren, like your background, everything's vibrant. You are as well. Like you have and that wasn't so vibrant. So it's like that, well, that changed up and it looks great. But I always had a knack for like things should look pretty nice. So that would come through graphic design, video design, or editing. And I would work with a lot of the personal development folks, the space in San Diego. I just got connected with a bunch of these people locally here. And I just started making videos for them and different promotional videos, sales videos. So inherently that would have me learn what the heck this product is they're trying to sell with their product launch. And some of those people I became business partners with, or at least I would do a lot of these launches. So it'd be like every 6 months, they would have a new product or launch. And inherently I got to be knowledgeable enough. So I'd try some of the techniques out, a lot of meditation, breath work, visualization, affirmations, like all of that stuff is always baked in. So yeah, I wouldn't say I had a regiment for something specifically until recently with that checklist. That really keeps me on point. And then accountability partners help too.
Yeah, accountability partners, huge.
Massive.
Huge.
Yeah. Like-minded people that you can speak freely to and with, and then also at the same time hold you accountable. You do your check-ins and make sure you're doing what you say you want to do. But breath work, I would say meditation and breath work. And when I say that, Wim Hof technique is the one specifically that I love. And that's it's like like it's like more of an activating, and I love it. Like even that just felt great because it moves everything. It frees my brain up. I do it in the morning, ideally, or feeling sluggish, and that's meditative. It's different than just sitting and being, but so many techniques.
There are, whatever it is that resonates with you, it all works.
Yeah,
all of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely. So you and your partner, Matt, broke up. That has to have were you expecting that? I mean, it's like a marriage. I mean,
it was,
certain things like that just throw you for a loop. Did you have that's a big pivot. We have to pivot in life.
Massive pivot. Yeah, because he was the one that I met through some mutual friends when we were in bands at the time. We actually never played in the same band, like rock bands. It was in college and stuff. But ended up working at his family's shutter company. So like window shutters, they would manufacture those. And I just learned how they operate a business as a small business. I was like, this is cool. I didn't know much about entrepreneurship before that. I knew I wanted to do something, and like the career job just wasn't really my jam. But Matt was there, and that's where him and I experimented on the off hours or the in hours when we would complete our other work. We'd be, always researching like, what does this make money online? Or how do we, market something online? Because we got this, it was Robert Kiyosaki's book, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, the purple book. It was like that completely shifted both of our brains. And like, okay, got to get out of this dollar per hour garbage. Like that's not it. That's not freedom. So it was kind of a mindset shifted at that point. Matt was always there. We created a lot together over the years. But honestly, it was late last year where it was the tipping point. And before that, we pivoted our business a handful of times. And I think it was a little lack of, we weren't on the same path with the vision as much as we were in the past. I think naturally, we're getting interest in different ways. We wanted to go some other ways, like honestly, like what he's doing now, creating content, being a lot more solo, tinkering around with tools and teaching, which he's great at. That's what he does now. And he's doing it very well. It's paying him. For me, I've always worked really well with people, like collaborated, co-create, give strategy, provide resources. Sometimes it's the doing of it too, but ideally a lot less of that because that's not as leverage for me. But so I do that more now. And talking, I essentially get paid to talk, which is pretty cool. I've engineered that. But the breakup part was starting to go on a ride a little longer on a path that I wasn't choosing. And I was running the numbers, how much time I would spend on it. My energy was not feeling good. As now I'm very clear that there's a time thing. You can value your time and you can value your energy. And, like there's a type of energy you're putting out into the world. And if it's not good energy, dark energy, then it's probably not going to be received well by anyone around you. So that's where I mentioned anger and kind of this like tightness. Had panic attack feelings last year, like around I would say like September-ish. That's when I was like, holy moly, this is not good. It's taking me out of it was just too much of a go, go, go. It's separate from the family. There was a lot of things that were just like, this isn't what I signed up. I just had to cut it off. Like after I literally got like so clear with the numbers, so dollar per hour, but then the energy, and then it was just very objective. And I had to spell that out in a Slack message, actually. It wasn't like we always communicated, we had a partner. I just had to spell it out in like black and white. Like, okay, here's what it is. It's not normally how I would approach things, but in this one, that's what made me feel clear. It was clear for him and it worked out, honestly. And I think it was for the best for him too, because he ended up pivoting, after that, little after. Can't speak for him on that side of things. But
no, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about the 80-20 rule, it sounds so good the way the maximum happiness with minimal effort. Like that sounds that was that's how it was written in the episode. Do you want to talk about the 80-20? Because you mentioned that a lot.
I think that's just it's a smart framework. It's the Pareto's principle. It's 20% of your efforts basically gives you 80% of your results. So, I mean, with that in mind, now even more than ever, I'd say your happiness comes from your habits and your choices internally to take a stand for yourself. I think before that, you got to observe and actually understand what the heck it is that you're or not doing, and just like trying to be a witness of your actions as much as possible. And, you could do things like auditing your time or auditing your energy. I had a guy, Dan Martell, on my podcast recently, and he has this whole like system for auditing those 2 weeks. And then you can kind of get a glimpse of like, oh, where is my self? And the 80-20, I think especially the habits, establishing, for me, it's about 10 core daily habits. I'm not 100% on them at all, but with the consistency of sleep, push-ups, hydration, working out, things like that, journaling, it's kind of hitting all the points that allow expression to happen or energy to even express, like working out, sweat. Like it's good for our brains, moving energy. That's the 80-20. Still a lot of work, but I feel like it's the work for yourself. It's got to start with you first. And then I feel like everything else just kind of falls into place if you don't hold on to it or put expectations out there.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer. If you journal and meditate and move your body, all those things, everything else flows from there. I mean, it just does. And even if it's 5 minutes of journaling, like it doesn't have to be 3 full pages. It could be a paragraph, but just anything.
Let it out. Yeah. I think that's the big thing. David Allen on the podcast a long time ago, and he created the Getting Things Done system. He wrote a book. I mean, it's massively popular book. I even ran for president at one time. But like the big thing was to call it the inbox, but basically brain dump everything on your mind. And just that alone, talk about 80-20 of the GTD system, brain dumping your brain. That was advice I gave to my wife, Heather, actually, because for a while she was just carrying so many plans and systems and reminders and things in her brain. I was like, you need a piece of paper and you need to write it all down. Just you'll feel better.
So how did you get from being a workaholic, this is what you had, to someone who's a bit more chill and can take off days and spend them with your family?
It was, I would say my wife, Heather, is a big proponent, or the one that has allowed me to see that. I think I started that way before. Like I always had that chill, kind of go with the flow vibe. And then it got a little tighter and a little more, And I think that was with my partner, Matt, but then doing all of these things that I felt like I wasn't really totally aligned with, or it just felt like it was just a little bit too much. That's where I started to get a little tighter. But then, and through Heather's progression, which is nice because like we co-create, it's kind of like co-preneurs, and that's one of the episodes, or 2 of them maybe.
Yeah,
it's like
they're really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to have a partner, and we always have been interested in what each other are doing. We're able to genuinely talk about the hard stuff we're going through, stuff in business, stuff in life. Yeah, am I always open and receptive? No, not always. I am human. But at the same time, like she's always reminding me, be nice to my Joey is what she says specifically. And I'm like, and I knew her when I was still called Joey, actually in middle school. I don't know if she told you that one.
She did. She did.
Okay. Yeah. So she could say, but yeah, no, like those little reminders, and like even daylight today where I'm doing 4 podcasts. This is the 4th, didn't really eat much today, but I do that on purpose because I feel like it keeps my brain actually on more and not sluggish. But like Heather just kind of laughs at me and she's like, you're rocking, and like she knows I'm doing a lot, but at the same time, I'm not like frantic at all. I feel like it's just kind of the habits are there enough to where I'm like baseline neutral. I'm not feeling all like worked up emotionally or whatever. There's a lot to do, a lot to go on, but it's all good. I don't know.
So somebody who isn't aligned with what they feel like they should be doing and they know they need to make a shift, but they're scared. What would you tell them?
They're scared. You got to address it. And that's the hardest thing is, things open up once you realize what you have been neglecting or maybe not looking at in your life. And sometimes, a horrible event maybe forces you to look at it. It could be whatever. I mean, we've all had the dark days, the dark night. I mean, I could talk about those. I lost my dad to suicide. That was a massive awakening point. And then I had my daughter, 4-year-old now, almost 2 weeks after that point. So it was like the lowest low. And then the highest high that we worked to have her for like 6-7 years, I think, at that point. So yeah, those were like big smacks across my face. And then there were others actually right in succession along with that. So the last, I would say, Lauren, the last 4 years, 4.5, have been like some of the wildest, eye-opening, drag through the mud years of my life where it's insane. I would never change anything because I learned so much. I confronted a lot of those things like through journaling. There's a self-authoring program. It's called by Jordan Peterson. And if you love what he does or not, take it for what it is. The process works. It's fabulous. And it's just so black and white. It's like essentially addressing your past and just reliving it enough to like, all right, what are the things that keeping you stuck? And it's really not until you work through these things, like this pattern, the moments in your life that are probably definitely condition you to where you're at right now. And if you're not aware of them, you just might not know
that. Yeah. If you don't know what those are, or even just your limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's wild. When you get past it, you're like, feels great. Or at least neutral again. Yeah.
I just in the episode I just recorded, I was talking about if it's hysterical, it's historical. Like if you have a much stronger emotional reaction to something that's going on, even if it's just something your partner said, it's probably not what he or she or they said. It's probably something from your past you haven't dealt with.
Yeah, it's historical. Yeah, because it's going back
some button was installed a long time ago. Like they hit that button and they didn't install it. It's like
that's right.
You got to work on some shit there.
Yeah, you do. And I think the biggest thing is forgiveness, is to not put that weight on yourself. Like losing my dad, I'll just say immediately I started seeing all the patterns and the things that I think led him to that point. I don't have any answers to that, so I can only, but at the same time, and that's okay. I think I'm pretty accurate in that, like, he actually stopped doing a lot of things that made him, like, he was an avid runner. He would play guitar and sing in band songs. I actually have a song right now in front of me, handwritten from him, that I still want to actually, because he wrote like the chords and everything. So it's pretty cool. But he stopped doing that. He stopped cooking. He loved all that. So there's certain things that just made him. And it didn't take long. It took like a year-ish to like really have, I think, to a point where it became impulsive. Probably something triggered and just went down the dark place. And I looked up a stat today. I was talking to a longevity doctor, Dr. Savage, who will come out on my podcast pretty soon. And we were talking about this. He was experienced, like, he's had some of these moments too. And he was like, look up the stat on entrepreneurs with suicide rate. And it's pretty scary. I don't think I saw the suicide rate, but I saw like the diagnosed, because he was like, this has got to be diagnosed or else it wouldn't have a stat. It was like 72% of entrepreneurs experience some type of deep depression or depression. Whereas like people who are not entrepreneurs are it's like 48 I think it is. Still high,
The whole, it ties in with the whole loneliness factor of people being alone. Or here we are, we're on Zoom, and we think, oh yeah, we're connected, and that we're not. It's not the same as physically being with other people. And texting isn't the same, and that we have to be together. I accumulated all my messages of hope, and from talking to elders, which is how this all started, is me talking to elders about what's the meaning of life, why are we here? It was my soul search. And the number one thing is community. We have to physically be together. Besides love and service, which is number two, helping others, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. But if we're not together physically, we don't get that community. And the loneliness is huge. But you have to tell somebody, and you have to be aware that you're lonely. And it's why I just got back from visiting my son. I just had this feeling. It was just a feeling. And I went and I visited him. He was fine by the time I left. He wasn't, college boys don't want to be like, yeah, mom, come. Or he never said anything. Someone said, oh, did he thank you? I said, what? No, he didn't thank me.
I don't do that.
He wasn't like, oh, please stay longer. No, but I know it was good I went. And
that's good on you.
He was fine by the time I left, and I feel better. And he clearly is too. It's just like I've been doing the work for long enough. I trust my gut, and I went.
Good.
And do you remember that stat from undergrad where like it might have changed, but the most susceptible to suicide and severe depression were single, elderly, retired military men?
Oh, I believe it. I have heard something like that.
Because they won't tell anybody.
Yeah. Old school, right?
Right? Like, no.
It was taboo, or just like with military. I mean, let's be honest. That's why it is such an issue. It's horrific stuff a lot of them gone through, and you don't want to face that.
They would never tell anyone, like some 80-year-old retired military man who's all by himself. He would never say, oh, I'm lonely. Can you imagine?
God, no. I'm thick skinned. I'm tough.
Yeah, right.
Yes, you are, and you're still human. And so that's what I'd forgive yourself for whatever action or inaction you're experiencing right now, because it's okay. It's life's pretty damn tough, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be so tough when you're taking control of what you should be doing for yourself. Well,
you create a lot of community down in San Diego, and you talk about creating community. Do you want to give some suggestions and ideas? Because maybe there's something people listening, oh, I would love to do this.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to start a podcast. I don't know. If they want to start a podcast, they should probably contact you.
Yeah, that's part of it.
And helping people, and we'll have links to everything that Joe does. But besides that, as far as starting community, you're so good at creating community.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like that is a superpower of mine. And it wasn't until later, or when I have, my wife Heather would tell me, or friends would be like, duh, Joe, like, you bring people together. Before the pandemic, all the COVID stuff, like I would always want to have parties here at the house or wherever gathering. And it was me curating the people I wanted to hang out. And that's literally what I do in my podcast every day. And I know the impact of that when I curate the right people in my virtual community online through the podcast, is I know that's going to have a ripple effect. So who I bring on is going to influence the message that's told to the listener, to their family, to their clients, greater community. And it's like not until I realized that, I was like, holy crap, like I have such a responsibility here to curate the right people to deliver that message. So I do that through the podcast. It does create community there. I know it. And part of that. So thank you very much. But then in person, and also, I've done many meetup events. Like there's a lot of different styles. I've done those, and usually it's with other people. I love to co-create masterminds as well. Doing one in January, and that's a co-created thing. So I love figuring it out with someone else because I think there's way more power in that. And you're just going to get a wider color of people, basically all different walks of life coming in. And I think that's what's cool, to share perspectives. But then like what I noticed with like house parties, for instance, everybody's going to want to talk with you. Or at least they're going to know that you're the one that connected maybe two new friends. And like you're that kind of line that goes in between that. And they're going to remember probably the place, the time, you, all the above. I think that's when I realized, I'm like, wow, okay, connecting people and being deliberate and bringing community together. Like it's actually more than just like, hey, let's have a party at my place. That's actually like, no, you're selecting community to bring to other people that may or may not know each other, but you're creating experiences. I mean, it could be over like drinks or whatever, or it could be, a mastermind where we're actually helping helping each other out to whatever grow what we're up to. So community is huge though. You need the connection, and you're right. Like I feel like there's a separation of a lot of people right now, and I think that's changing for some people. I think that's becoming more aware, but people are still awkward and don't want to go out, or it's too expensive, and which is all true in some regards, but at the same time it's like, well, we're still human, and don't let politics and all the world stuff, all that external shit get in the way, because we still have the human experience that we can't let go and replace it with our phones or Instagram or whatever the hell.
Definitely not. And we can all hold space for each other no matter what's going on, for sure. So what's the hardest challenge that you've gone through, and how did you get through it?
It's definitely losing my dad. I would say that, and I didn't go deep into that story, but at the same time, it's this feeling of that, like at an early middle school, my parents divorced. And I feel like that was the point when I felt more responsibility than I was ready for, because he moved out. I was essentially told I was the man of the house at that point. Like, oh, cool. Great. Like, was totally ready for that one. But yeah. And then I feel like that made it for confusion era, middle school, high school, figuring myself out. It wasn't until, band life is like, oh, now expressing myself and not really holding back, because I was kind of shy, believe it or not, before practice. Podcast helped, playing music helped. But the hardest part I would say was, my dad, and realizing like those patterns, not to give kind of like the same answer as before, but really like realizing, because that gap from like middle school to when he passed, like he ended up moving away, went to the East Coast. I'm out in San Diego. And so there was a separation. There wasn't that dad support. He kind of became more friend-like, like a good friend. So that wasn't that's not the relationship I wanted. I think everyone should have a fatherly figure of sorts, a mentor or someone to help guide them. And I don't know, I felt like it was almost opposite in a lot of ways. So that felt a little weird too. And losing him, then it was like, holy crap, look at all these patterns that I wasn't totally aware of that he inadvertently passed down to me. And I'm now being like a holy crap moment, seeing all these different things that for one, at first I was like, how the hell could he do that? Little resentment, all that whole processing stuff. And then realizing, no, he was a good man. He was a great man. He did his best, as everyone does, but he just wasn't aware of some patterns that were likely given to him through however conditioning. We all got that. I think this is where I really realized patterns and understood, holy crap, childhood trauma. Like I did fostering as well. So like we fostered some kids, and I understood then like how much of an imprint period that is when you have a kid, especially us like 4 days out of the NICU, being like, holy shit, that's a lot of responsibility. And that kid's going to walk throughout life with what we imprint her with. And that's what I just noticed my dad did for me. So honestly, it's being aware of that and then working through it, because I didn't want to pass negative stuff to my kids, and breaking the chain. That's pretty tough.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But what incredible work you've done.
Thank you. It's not done.
No, I know. It's always peeling the onion, It's like, I think it's a lifetime challenge.
Mm-hmm. It is. And at the same time, I would never have it any other way. Like, I feel like that's so cliche, but it's so true, because that's like what made up life. There's a lot of external stuff we can't control. So
I was about to say there's no choice.
Yeah. So, well, there's a book recently, some doctor, some guy, I was writing about like, there's no free will at the end of the day, like, which, he makes an interesting want. Check it out if you want.
You could get into a whole thing. But we have a choice whether to work on ourselves or not, and how deep we can work on ourselves, or we could just do Netflix all day, I guess, instead.
And that's free.
That's free will, isn't it?
That is, and then you're still going to have life imposing its own will on you that you can't control, and that's kind of the point he's making.
I think I'm sure this.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting topic, but
it is.
It could lead you to like, oh, that's great. I don't have to worry about so much. Or it's like, oh, this is meaningless. So it's like,
it's all going over. Yeah, I know. I don't have to work.
And that's some people's thought. Yeah.
I don't think that's anybody listening or going.
I don't think so either. No,
definitely not. Do you have a message of hope you want to give?
I feel like we're exactly where we are supposed to be, and I fully believe that. It takes time to understand that, and maybe slow down enough to see that, and that goes through doing the work on yourself, and really like a lot of what we were talking, like uncover your past and uncover those things that where you feel like your mind just wants to go to all the time. And it's like, well, what is that all about? It's like, our minds are powerful machines, but also let's be present and try to take in what it is that we want to focus on. And I think that's understanding and believing that where we're at right now is perfectly fine. It's totally good. And we have the choice, enough choice at least to make the choice. Like I said, almost in the beginning, it's like an action or inaction, and do it in a way that's balanced or harmonious.
Harmonious. I love the harmony.
Yeah. And it should be, because or you can call it flow or whatever it is, but you could still be that A player, A driver, A type person. But let's be honest, we all have enough, 24 hours, same 24 hours, but it's how are you going to use it? And then also, how do you apply the energy? Light energy? Are you feeling good and expressing, and is it received? Or is it dark where it's maybe you shouldn't be doing that? Or maybe get someone else to do that, automate it, delegate it, kill it, stop doing it now. So yeah, that's what I got.
I love that. That's so good.
Thank you. I love what you're doing here, Lauren, too, because it's we talked about this in the chats that we've had, the one-on-ones and stuff. And it's this is definitely a thing right now where, just slowing down a little bit, enough to pause. And because let's be honest, when we step away from things, that's when things kind of come together, the right things attach. As long as you're settled enough to receive those messages.
Yeah. Answers emerge in the pause.
That's it. I like that too. Ain't that the truth? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else I should have asked you that I didn't ask you when we're done? You'll be like, Lauren didn't ask me this.
I don't think so, because I know you did your research, and this hit on the core of what I wanted to get out here anyway, because I genuinely think, the patterns, knowing yourself, and be open to working through that stuff. And there's tools out there. I mentioned, the self-authoring tool, journaling just in a notebook, but focusing on what are those things in your past that are holding you, however way it's holding you back, or maybe, stopping you from taking that next step. It's gonna be tough, but then it's quickly not going to be tough anymore. And then you move on, and it feels good. Yeah. So let that shit go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a guest today on 52 Weeks of Hope.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you for listening.